Well, oh goodness, I have not seen the pond this overgrown since I've been working down here. But we're back on this farm project, and I don't know if you guys remember, but I initially cleared and mowed a lot of these ditches through here, but I never really, I kind of trimmed up the pond, but I really haven't cut it. There was a couple areas that I cut, but this definitely needs to be mowed. So I was going to come down here and kind of finish that big ditch where I was testing this thing out last week. I was going to go to that big ditch over there and finish, but the owner wanted me to come trim up the pond before it gets too bad. So this little brush cutter head on this Takeuchi is perfect for stuff like this. Just small, brushy, you know, briars and just junk stuff and dog fennel. It's perfect for that. Like I said before, if you didn't see my previous video reviewing this thing, trying it out, it's rated for 4-inch material, but you're really going to be more efficient in like the 3-inch kind of material and down. It'll do 4-inch material, no doubt. But is it as efficient as a mulcher? No. And I have the same issue with my MTL on my Kubota U55. You know, any of these rotary cutters, unless they're like really big, on something like a, you know, probably a 8-ton or up, you know, they're rated a lot of times to do 4- and 5-inch material, but it's typically not as efficient as a mulcher. But for stuff like this, that's what this thing is made for. It's perfect for, and like that kind of stuff, go right through it. Somebody commented that you know, this front here being open, issues with it bogging down in the front. And that is one thing you do, and I should have mentioned that, that's one thing you do kind of have to be a little more cautious with this type of design. It's not a bad design, it just, you know, all of the designs for these different brush cutters all have their sort of strengths and weaknesses, you know, advantages and disadvantages. One's not, you know, that I've ever found really better than any other one as far as a make or model or brand. They just all kind of do different things in their own way. So with this one, you really kind of have to be careful, because if you're running the machine and you tip that head down when you're sweeping the ground a little bit, if it's off just a little bit, you're gonna dig these blades into the ground. So like on my MTL, the sides are open, and then you have a bar, you know, a guide bar that comes down on the back and the front to kind of keep that from happening as you sweep the ground. So there's no way for me to really dig the blades into the ground, you know, in the front like this, you know. But this has its advantages, because you can, you know, if you're around trees and stuff, you can just take the front of this right down the side of a tree or in front of a tree and get all the vines and junk around it. So again, advantages, disadvantages, not one better than the other, I would say. They do different things in their own way. So I thought that would be just something to point out. I do like this head. It seems to be very effective. I would be curious to see how one of these would really spin up on the U55, running, you know, a little bit more flow and horsepower behind it. But this thing does a great job. Very impressed with it so far. So we're gonna cut this pond around here and see what it looks like afterward. Then we might do some more ditch work and maybe try to grade those, put the bucket on and maybe grade those mounds out over there too. So we'll just see what we get into today. Okay, well that worked out well. The pond looks a whole lot better, and that thing did great in here. It went through all this stuff like no problem. So super happy with that. But you can tell you definitely have to be careful with that open front like that, because you know, I definitely dug the ground in a few spots with it, because it's just, I'm just not used to it. You know, my MTL has that, you know, bar coming down on the front that keeps you from doing that, so you can just go back and forth, don't have to worry about really those blades being in the ground. You know, you don't have to be quite as precise, but with that thing you really do have to be very precise. And if there's any mound or anything like that, you know, mine will just, because it's got that bar in the front, will just roll right up over it. That one just will go right into it. So you definitely have to be a little more precise with it. But it's nice because you have that open front, so you can kind of go right down and just run those blades, you know, kind of right down around the edge of the water, and it'll cut all that stuff in the front. So again, advantages, disadvantages. So all right, well that worked out well. Let's go find something else to do around here. I guess we got to go finish those ditches, so let's get to that. All right, so got all this brush cut from about right down there where that big pine is, all the way down to where this ditch basically makes a right turn. Well, it keeps going, and then but it also tees and goes that way. So, and then there's a culvert pipe that runs right underneath there, where you can go over to the other side of the property. But got all this done, brush cut down. Rut did a great job, especially back here in this corner, because that stuff was thick back in there. I was trying to time lapse it. I got some of it time lapse, but it's so hot out here today, and it's not even noon yet, and the GoPro was already overheating, and it cut off on me right as I got out to move it again. It was like it forced itself to shut down because of overheating. So I'm gonna try to get what I can today footage wise. I don't know how much I'll be able to time lapse just because it's so hot, unless I get this thing in the shade. But yeah, this is looking good. So I'm gonna go switch this out for the bucket. And then the goal here now is to kind of start grading down all of these mounds and getting this flat so it can be easier maintained along the edge of the ditch, basically with a tractor and a bush hog. And then all you'll need this for in the future is just in the ditch itself. So let's go get this thing swapped out. right, ladies and gents, let me turn the throttle down here and you might hear me a little better. So we have had a wonderful afternoon downpour come down, but this is just about done. I'm very close to getting done. So I got about another 20 yards to go, about past where that oak tree right there is. So that's where the corner is, where the ditch cuts back that way, goes over that culvert right there. So all of this is looking really good. I wasn't able to time lapse any of this because right as I cut the GoPro off that was on the machine itself, you know, it's been raining like this for about a good 30 or 45 minutes. So if this ground is getting a little bit too wet and sticky for me to kind of push and grade this dirt, it's really clayey. And so when it gets wet like this, it's just kind of a sticky, gumbo-y mess. And this machine doesn't quite, with these rubber tracks, have quite enough traction to really push it. And it's just so sticky, it's kind of hard to grade. But everything through here looks pretty good. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just, you know, get these mounds knocked down to the point where you can actually drive over this with a tractor and a bush hog, you know, basically up to the edge of the ditch. So you're not having to come through here and cut these mounds with this machine with that brush cutter on it, because it works, but it's definitely not as efficient as just riding a tractor along the edge of this ditch and then using just this machine just for the ditch itself. And it makes it a lot easier because the way these mounds were all mounted up right here, you couldn't even hardly get to the edge of the ditch. Plus you were sitting up so high, sitting on top of the mounds, this machine doesn't have enough reach to get to the bottom of that ditch, because that ditch is pretty deep. Now it does. So all of this actually looks pretty good through here, all graded out and fairly flat. It doesn't matter that it slopes back this way because these ditches over here don't drain this field anyway. So it doesn't matter that the water is not draining down into this ditch. It never did anyway. So we're not trying to get that to happen. So if this has got a slant back this way, that's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not going to hurt anything. But if we have to come back, if it gets to be a problem, we can always just dig a little, you know, a small little culvert here, or a swale basically, and let that water kind of come down the road here to a middle point and then just drain down into the ditch, or something like that. We can figure it out. But on the other side where I've done this with the other ditches, it has not seemed to be a problem even in heavy rain. So I'm gonna wrap this up for the day, and I'll be back, I'm sure, to finish that over there. And I think the owner's gonna hop on this thing over the weekend and do some brush cutting and stuff like that. So I hope you guys are having a great week. Tomorrow's Friday, it's almost the weekend, and I am out of here. So I will catch you guys later, and hopefully this rain is gone by the time I get back to the truck so I don't get soaked, but I doubt that'll be the case. I'll see you guys later.